Okay, and we're back with another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest. We're back with another tier list. Once again, shout out Evan for the tier list. We're banging these out. There's so many to do. And this one's going to be a DCEU tier list, right? So all of the DCEU media that's come out during, I guess, Zack Snyder's run as head of DC or heading up to the DCEU, whatever his job title was. There were some good movies. There was a lot of bad movies, and we're gonna be putting them all in the tier list. Starting off with the first one, which is Man of Steel. Now, I guess how do I want to rate these? Do I want to rate these as films on their own merit, or do I want to rate these in terms of how they contrast against other DCEU properties? Right, where Man of Steel is probably like an S tier DCEU film, but in reality, it's at best case an A tier, realistically like a B tier film, right? Um, I'm gonna make it basing these films based off their own merit. So Man of Steel is a B tier film, a good film, solid film, a film that I've rewatched a number of times. Of course, isn't super generational, if we're being honest. Some interesting storyline choices, some really good action scenes as you'd expect from Zack Snyder. But I'll be honest, Superman making a film for Superman is always going to be difficult to do and make it interesting because he's so powerful, right? So Zack Snyder had to do something different with this, and that's what he done. He took a different route, showed a bit more of Krypton, and ultimately ended off the film with Superman killing someone, which is very unlike Superman. But I guess Zack Snyder felt like he had to do something to spice it up, right? So I'm putting it at B. Then we've got Batman v Superman. I'm putting that at the C tier. Now I've only ever seen the Ultimate Edition of this film. And people say the Ultimate Edition is a lot better. I don't know. I can't speak to it because I haven't compared both. But the Complete Edition is a solid film. Again, you're always going to struggle to make Batman v Superman a good film when it's your second film into the DCEU, right? It's a film that the Complete Edition, the story does make a lot more sense in the Complete Edition. It still is flawed and at times still nonsensical, but is explored a bit more, or explored quite a bit maybe. Well, as it should be, if you're getting nearly 3.5 hours to make a film, like that film better be good. Like how do you have so long to tell a story and you tell it badly, right? I mean, arguably you could say that is the case for Batman v Superman, but it's an okay film with, again, similar to Man of Steel, some really good action scenes. So yeah, then we've got the Suicide Squad, David Ayer's version, which apparently isn't really David Ayer's version because it was uh, changed a lot by the studio, but that's going in D tier. Wonder Woman is the first one. I haven't seen this. Pretty good reviews, but I can't comment on it because I've not seen it. It's going D tier. Justice League, the Joss Whedon Justice League is D tier, and to be honest, is probably one of the worst in the DCEU. I haven't seen Suicide Squad, so I can't say if it was good or bad. And I haven't seen Wonder Woman, although Wonder Woman reviews are quite good. Aquaman, haven't seen that. Shazam, I've seen. That's probably like a C tier in terms of, okay, I see the Shazam movie, and I'm like, am I really gonna watch it? I'm probably about as likely to watch it as I am to watch Batman v Superman. The only advantage Shazam does have is the fact that it's more watchable. Like I said, I've only seen the complete edition of Batman v Superman, so I already know I don't want to commit to sitting down and watching a 3.5, 4 hour long film. No one's got time for that, bro. Whereas the Shazam is a lot shorter, funnier, a lot more digestible, and a solid film as well. Birds of Prey, not seen it. Wonder Woman 2, not seen it. Zack Snyder's Justice League, uh, a B. At one point, if you had asked me this, I probably would have put it at an A. But it's a B film. It's a B tier film. Ultimately, is as a film, I don't know. The thing is, it really depends on if you're a fan of Zack Snyder's work or not, right? If you're a fan of his sort of style, I am to an extent. At this point, particularly as well, I am to an extent. I didn't like how long the film was. I didn't like the fact that they tried to split it up into parts, and that made no difference to the film at all. Like those breaks, those like chapters, parts, whatever. You basically could not have. You basically could have not had them there, and it wouldn't have made a difference, right? But yeah, again, a super long film does explore the storyline quite a bit, right? Each character is given a lot more time to breathe in this film compared to Joss Whedon's Justice League, and the tone feels a lot more appropriate for a DCEU film compared to Joss Whedon's Justice League, which was very camp and bright and colourful, which really poorly contrasted Zack Snyder's, darker, grayer tone of film. It really didn't work. Zack Snyder's Justice League did work in that way, but Joss Whedon's Justice League didn't. And then we've got this is, which one is this? Oh, this is James Gunn's Suicide Squad. Yeah, this is S tier. This is S tier. That's a really good film. One of my favorite superhero films. And again, the story's great. The story's great in it. It felt disconnected to the DCEU, which at this point was very much a good thing. Very, very, very much a good thing because the DCEU at this point was in tatters, right? And we'll talk about some of those films that sort of got in that position after this, but in absolute tatters. And at that point, also, and at that point, everyone's sort of thinking, is this the end for DC, or the DCEU rather, right? But also, this came out at an interesting time. This came out during lockdown, right? And that undoubtedly affected the box office performance, where you're releasing a film to cinemas when no one can go to cinemas, right? Like you're not expecting to make any money on that, but undoubtedly, it's probably the best DCEU film that was ever produced, and that was made by James Gunn. And James Gunn's now head of DC, so speaks a lot to that. Peacemaker, again, S tier, a lot of fun. John Cena, obviously, these are two of John Cena's best roles. These are his best roles and his best performances as an actor, absolutely hands down, right? Absolutely hands down. And we get to see so much from him in the Peacemaker show. It's great. Again, up there with the best stuff the DCEU ever produced. Of course, the Suicide Squad is a movie and Peacemaker is a show, series. Black Adam, that's going C tier. Again, out of the other films in the C tier, Black Adam is probably the one I'd watch the most, which is kind of crazy to say. Is the one I'd watch the most because again, it doesn't. The story's pretty basic, but it's not trying to be a crazy in-depth story with loads of thread lines. No, it's a basic story with some interesting characters. Maybe not interesting characters. Only Black Adam and the Doctor Fate. They're the only two interesting characters, to be honest, right? But those were really good characters, bro. Like they're good characters, and that's two more interesting characters than most of these films have, right? And some decent action, some decent fight scenes from Black Adam as well, and Doctor Fate. So yeah, it's going in C tier because it's a film that, of course, I wouldn't mind watching again. Shazam 2, that's going D tier. I watched this and was uh, bored and felt like I just wasted my time when I watched this. Then we've got a controversial one in The Flash. Shout out Evan. If this was Evan, he'd put it D tier. But this is not Evan, this is Seth. Flash is a good film, man. It's not S tier. It's not A tier. It's maybe C tier. Maybe B tier. It's C tier. It's C tier, if we're being honest. It's not D tier, in my opinion. Right? Because a film like Shazam 2 was boring. Right? It was boring. The Flash, you can't say is boring. There's stuff going on in The Flash. And again, if I see these films in a lineup, I'm more likely to watch The Flash than I am Joss Whedon's Justice League or Shazam 2 or even Batman v Superman. Right? Because at least Flash, there's stuff going on. Right? Then there's Blue Beetle. Again, Blue Beetle's pretty inoffensive. In terms of it just purely being a film, it's probably the best out of all of the films in the C tier. It's because it does nothing really wrong. It sort of suffers from the same thing that Ant-Man does, where you're coming into it with like the second rendition of the Blue Beetle, right? You're not even using the original, which for Ant-Man doesn't really work because Hank Pym is so instrumental in Marvel, right? Blue Beetle isn't, you know, as influential as a Batman or a Superman or a Flash or Aquaman, etc., or Cyber or Wonder Woman. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? But Blue Beetle 2 goes to see Blue Beetle 2. If it was a slightly better movie, it maybe even gone B tier because it's not a bad film, but it's just not a great one, right? Then you've got Aquaman 2, and same thing as Shazam 2. Pretty much a waste of time. This was the last film in the DCEU, so you already knew nothing crazy was actually going to happen in this. But like I said, pretty boring film. Decent villain, some decent scenes, but I didn't love it. I didn't think it was anything crazy. Uh, like I said, pretty boring film. And if I saw it in a lineup again, I wouldn't be watching. I'd be watching all of the films in the C tier before I'd want to watch Aquaman 2 again. Right. So that's how I'm going off it. I'm thinking, okay, let's say someone presented me this list, and which film slash series would I want to watch the most, start to finish, or top to bottom rather. But yeah, that's my DCEU tier list. Of course, S tier, we'll go through it. We've got S tier, we've got the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker. We've got nothing in A tier. Interesting, nothing in A tier. I mean, that does sum up the DCEU though. You either have, one or two great projects and the rest are pretty mid. You know what I mean? That's really how it is. Or you think all of them are great and not many, and only a handful are mid or dead. But I guess it's personal preference in it. So nothing in the A tier. B tier, we've got Man of Steel and Zack Snyder's Justice League. Then in the C tier, we've got Batman v Superman, Shazam, Black Adam, Flash, and Blue Beetle. Then in the D tier, we've got David Ayer's Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, Joss Whedon's Justice League, Aquaman, Birds of Prey, Wonder Woman 84, Shazam 2, and Aquaman 2. Alright, guys, I'd be curious to know who would be in your tier list and where would they be? I know who would be in there, but where would you put them? I mean, surely I'm not the only one that thinks DCEU has had no A tier movies. I don't know. We'll find out. Let me know what you guys think. But yeah, another episode of the Seth Solo Cyclist in the bag, and I'm out. Peace.